welcome back to my channel. So this is my second video in the Salem witch trial series that I am doing. So I would like to reiterate from my last video that I am not a professional. I have not necessarily studied this in any sort of professional way. This is all information I have found through a multitude of sources throughout the internet, videos and whatnot, and I've kind of tried to put my own version of what happened together, making the most sense of what I think happened. Of course, there's different dates for everything, there's different ages for everything. There's a lot of different information floating around the internet on what happened to each person during the Salem witch trials, because my intent was to kind of focus on an individual person, and today that person is going to be Sarah Good. Of course, other people will get mentioned throughout their stories, depending on how much of an impact other people had on what they went through. So, with that said, I'm going to share my information, what I have found. If, of course, you have more interest, if you have more interest in this topic, absolutely, I encourage you to look it up yourself. So, with that said, let's get started. So Sarah Good was estimated to be born around July 21st of 1653, and she died during the Salem witch trials when she was executed on July, I believe, 19th of 1692. There was some information that said July 29th, so I'm not entirely sure, but I believe it was July 19th. Of course, she was charged for witchcraft, and she was about 38 years old. What's really interesting that I found about Sarah is the description of her kind of described her as like being an old hag, having white hair, being this very stereotypical witch that you think when you think of like a Halloween witch, you know, this like moles and white hair and wrinkly and gray skin, you know, like this is how Sarah's described in a lot of stuff. But going by her birth date and her death date, she was under 40 years old. And I understand that age was different in the 1600s. 40 was obviously considered a lot older than 40 is today. 40 is quite young today. But even then, at 40 years old, she wouldn't look like she was 70 or 80 or 90 years old. So it was very interesting to me that she was only 40 or just under 40 and was described as being this old hag, basically. When Sarah was tried for witchcraft and considered guilty for witchcraft, she was actually pregnant at the time with her second daughter. So her execution was actually postponed until after she had given birth to her daughter, which she gave birth to in jail. So what a lovely birth. Sadly, her infant that was born in jail did pass away. She had named her daughter Mercy, so her name was Mercy Good, and that is such a beautiful name and also such a sad name at the same time because there was no Mercy, and sadly, like I said, she did pass away in jail at just a few days old, if even a few days old. While Sarah Good was in prison with her pregnancy, and she was also in prison with her 4, 5, or 6-year-old daughter. I'm going to say she was 5 because, again, ages vary. Her daughter, Dorcas Good, who was also charged with witchcraft at 5 years old and in prison with her mother. I'm going to touch a little bit more on Dorcas a little bit later. So Sarah was born to a fairly wealthy family for her time. However, her father did pass away and she had other siblings, a lot of brothers, and so even though there was money to be had amongst the children, Sarah was left with essentially nothing, and that's that. Sarah went on to marry a man named Daniel Poole, and I couldn't find a ton about their marriage except for the fact that they had debt, and so after Daniel passed away, Sarah was left with nothing but the debt of her marriage to Daniel Poole. In the 1680s, Sarah went on to remarry a man named Edward Good, and in the late 1680s, they had their daughter Dorcas Good. The Goods were said to be a very poor family, known to be beggars, kind of a disturbance to the town, not a very conventional family. Sarah was said to be a very unpleasant woman and unpleasant towards other children as well. So it seems to me that what better way to remove a nuance from the town other than to, you know, accuse them of witchcraft, right? Again, all these stories, it's like, were they witches or were they just unconventional? Were they just, you know, a bad vibe for the town? Sarah was accused with multiple accounts of witchcraft, multiple accounts of hurting children, as well as there was one woman who brought forward a knife that she accused Sarah stabbed her with and actually broke part of the knife in her or something. However, there was, I believe, a butcher who disputed this by coming forward saying that it was his knife and he was the one that broke it, and it was just a lot of BS. And yet it was, I mean, she still got charged with witchcraft. Sarah's own husband, Edward Good, actually testified against her, saying that she was becoming a witch and that she was an enemy to all that is good. Their daughter Dorcas was also made to testify against Sarah. What I could find was that Dorcas, again, she's a child, like a 5-year-old, didn't really know what to say and was confused and sad and didn't really speak anything against her mother. And so the court decided that that meant that Dorcas was an accomplice and was also a witch.
If they're really witches, why don't they use their powers to escape?
That sounds like witch talk to me, Lisa.
Never mind.
So although there was absolutely no credible evidence against Sarah, she was still tried as a witch and found guilty, and her, like I said, 5-year-old daughter was also tried. After Sarah gave birth to her daughter Mercy, she was hanged as she was accused of witchcraft and found guilty. She was hanged in 1962 along with Sarah Osborne. Her daughter Dorcas lived 7 months in prison before she was released. However, in that 7 months, she witnessed her baby sister be born, her baby sister die, and her mother be executed. So even though Dorcas was released from prison around 6 years old, she went on to live a very unstable life, a lot of mental issues, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety that of course wasn't undiagnosed. Yeah, she did not go on to live a particularly normal life, as you wouldn't after being through that. It's sad to say, but it really does seem like Sarah was not executed because she was a witch by any means. She was executed because she was an inconvenience. She went against the norm. And again, it's a lot of information that says she was like this, but there was no proof of anything. So did she abuse children? She had a daughter of her own, eventually 2 daughters of her own. So I think she was just a poor woman that, didn't fit the status quo of the town, and they just decided, hey, let's get rid of her. That's the information I have about Sarah Good. Thank you for watching. Thank you for finding this interesting if you did. Like I said, I'm not a professional. I don't know a ton about this stuff. I would love to go to Salem and learn more about it. But yeah, this is what I found. If you have any inconsistencies or anything I said incorrect, please feel free to correct me in the comments kindly. Yeah, thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'll have another video coming up next week.